Picture this. You get the call on a Tuesday afternoon. Your manager wants to meet. You sit down, they slide a paper across the desk, and there it is. A 15% raise. You do the math in your head on the way back to your desk. That's an extra $8,000 a year. That's almost $700 a month. You text your partner. You go out to dinner to celebrate. You deserve this. You've been working toward this moment for 2 years. Now, fast forward 90 days. Same account balance. Same low-grade financial anxiety. Same feeling that you're running hard and somehow not moving. The raise hit. You saw it on your pay stub, but something didn't add up, and you couldn't quite figure out what. Here's what happened. The raise was real. The money showed up, but it went somewhere you didn't choose and somewhere you didn't notice, and by the time you looked around, it was gone. This isn't a video about working harder or earning more. It's about why income is the most overrated variable in personal finance and why the people quietly winning with money figured that out a long time ago. By the end of this video, you'll understand why your savings rate matters more than your salary, and you'll be able to calculate the one number that actually tells you whether you're building wealth or just funding a more expensive version of staying broke. That's not an exaggeration. Stick with me. Let's start with the most important distinction in personal finance that almost nobody makes clearly. Income is not wealth. These two things sound like they should be the same. They are not even close to the same. Income is what flows in. Wealth is what stays. And the gap between those two things is where most people's financial lives fall apart without them ever realizing it. Here's a simple picture. Person A earns $45,000 a year. Person B earns $120,000 a year. Who's wealthier after 20 years? Most people answer that without hesitating. Person B, obviously. But here's the information you are missing. Person A saves 25% of their income every year and invests it. Person B saves 4%. After 20 years, assuming a standard 7% market return, Person A has accumulated roughly $590,000. Person B has accumulated about $410,000. Person B earned nearly 3 times as much money over those 2 decades and ended up with less of it. That's not a trick. That's arithmetic. And it plays out in real life constantly. The variable that determined the outcome wasn't the salary. It was the gap between what came in and what stayed. Income is the scoreboard everyone watches. Wealth is the scoreboard that actually matters. Most people never look at it. So why does this keep happening? Why do people earn more and end up with roughly the same amount? There's a name for it, and it's one of the most well-documented phenomena in behavioral economics. Lifestyle inflation. Every time your income goes up, your spending follows. Not always immediately, not always dramatically, but it follows. The apartment gets a little nicer, the car gets a little newer, the restaurants get a little better, the vacations get a little longer. None of these individual upgrades feel reckless. Each one feels earned, and that's exactly what makes this trap so effective. It doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like progress. Think about the sequence. You get the raise. Within 3 months, you've moved into a slightly nicer apartment because now you can afford it. You swap the old car because the payment is manageable now. You stop meal prepping because, honestly, your time is worth more than that. You upgrade your phone because the new one is only $20 more a month. Each decision is rational in isolation. Added together, they consume every dollar of that raise, and sometimes more. Your lifestyle expands to fill your income the same way a gas expands to fill whatever container it's in. It's not a character flaw. It's a deeply human response to feeling like you've finally earned the right to stop saying no. But here's what the math looks like on the other side of those decisions. You didn't get richer. You got more expensive. Now here's the part of the raise conversation that almost nobody has with you. the part where the actual number gets quietly carved up before it ever reaches your life. Let's say you negotiated a $10,000 raise. That number felt significant when you asked for it and when you got it. But that's not the number that shows up in your account. First, federal income tax takes a cut. Depending on your bracket, that's 22% or 24% on every dollar of that raise, because raises get taxed at your marginal rate, not your average rate. Most people don't track this. They just notice their paycheck went up less than they expected. Then state income tax if you live somewhere that has it. Then FICA. By the time the raise clears all of that, your $10,000 raise might net you somewhere between $6,000 and $7,000 in actual take-home pay. That's the first ambush. The second ambush is timing. Your spending upgrades happen immediately. The raise arrives in increments spread across 26 pay periods, so you're living at your new, slightly more expensive level on day one, but the money to support it arrives slowly across the entire year. The gap between your new lifestyle and your actual new cash flow is where the credit card balance quietly grows. And the third ambush is the most insidious one. Because you earned more, you feel more financially secure. That feeling of security makes you slightly less careful. You stop tracking as closely. You stop questioning the small purchases. After all, you got the raise. You're doing fine. And that loosened grip on your spending is often worth more than the raise itself, just in the wrong direction. So your $10,000 raise nets roughly $6,500 after taxes. Your lifestyle adjustments cost you $7,200 in new annual expenses. You are now $700 per year further behind than you were before the raise, and you feel better about your finances than ever. That's not a hypothetical. That plays out in millions of households every single year. Let's make this concrete with some real patterns, because this trap doesn't just catch average earners. It scales up with the income, and it gets more impressive and more depressing the higher you go. The entry-level version. Someone in their late 20s gets their first significant raise, from $52,000 to $65,000. They move from a roommate situation into their own apartment. That single decision costs them roughly $800 more per month. The raise after taxes gave them about $550 more per month. They are now housing themselves at a loss and calling it adulting. The mid-career version, a 35-year-old marketing manager, hits $95,000. They've been driving a reasonable used car. Now they lease something newer because the payment is only $480 a month, and they've earned it. They upgrade their gym membership, start getting regular massages because stress, and book a nicer vacation than usual. None of this is outrageous. All of it is expensive. Their savings rate actually drops from the previous year despite earning more. The high-income version, and this one surprises people every time. Physicians, attorneys, senior engineers, household incomes of $250,000 or more. They should be building serious wealth. Many of them are not. The private school tuitions, the mortgage on the house in the right neighborhood, the cars that match the driveway, the club memberships, the second vacation, the category-appropriate spending at every level, the lifestyle that matches the income. They earn extraordinary amounts and spend extraordinary amounts and arrive at 50 with a great resume and a surprisingly modest net worth. The income was never the problem. The gap was always the problem. Here's the concept that actually explains who wins and who doesn't, and it's a number almost nobody tracks. Your savings rate, not your salary, not your net worth yet. Your savings rate, the percentage of your income that you keep every month. This single number predicts your financial future more accurately than your job title, your degree, or the city you live in. Here's why it's so powerful. A 10% savings rate means you spend 90% of what you earn. At that rate, it takes roughly 9 years of working to fund 1 year of not working. The math on retirement is brutal at 10%. A 20% savings rate means you fund 1 year of freedom for every 4 years you work. That's meaningful. A 30% savings rate compresses the timeline even further. At 50%, you're funding a year of freedom for every year you work. That's the math behind the people who retire in their 40s. They didn't earn more. They kept more. And here's the part that reframes the raise conversation entirely. A raise only helps you if it increases your savings rate. If your income goes from $70,000 to $80,000 and your spending goes from $63,000 to $73,000, your savings rate stayed flat. The raise generated zero additional wealth. It just made your life more expensive at the same rate it was already more expensive. But if your income goes from $70,000 to $80,000 and your spending stays at $63,000, your savings rate jumps from 10% to about 21%. That same raise, handled differently, just changed your financial trajectory. The raise didn't change. The decision about what to do with it changed everything. This is where most financial content stops. It explains the problem and leaves you with a vague instruction to spend less. That's not useful. Here's what's actually useful. First, calculate your real savings rate right now. Take what you saved last month, divide it by your gross income, multiply by 100. That number is your financial truth, not your salary, not your job title. That percentage. Most people have never calculated it. Most people who do are surprised by how low it is. Second, treat your next raise as an investment event before it becomes a lifestyle event. The window between when the raise is confirmed and when the money starts arriving is the most important financial moment you will face all year. Decide in that window, before the money is real and before your brain has adjusted to it, exactly what percentage of it you're going to route to savings or investments. Then automate it. Make that decision once and let the system enforce it. Your brain cannot be trusted to make this decision correctly every month. It will find a reason to spend the money. Don't give it the chance. Third, audit your last 3 raises. Go back and look at what you were saving when you earned less. Then look at what you're saving now. If the gap hasn't grown meaningfully, you have your answer. The raises came. The wealth didn't. Now you know why. Fourth, stop measuring financial progress by income and start measuring it by savings rate and net worth. Those are the actual scoreboards. Income is the scoreboard society trained you to watch because it's visible. Your salary comes up in conversations. Your savings rate doesn't. Your net worth doesn't. But those invisible numbers are the ones that determine whether you work because you want to or because you have to. Go back to the person in that Tuesday afternoon meeting, the one who got the raise and texted their partner and went out to dinner. 90 days later, their account balance is the same and they can't explain why. They weren't doing anything wrong. They were doing exactly what the system trained them to do. Earn more, spend more, feel like you're progressing. The feeling of progress without the mathematics of progress. Here's what nobody told them. The raise was a test, not a reward, not a test of whether they deserved it. They did. A test of whether they knew what to do with it, whether they would let it expand their life or their future. Most people expand their life. The people quietly winning with money expand their future. And the beautiful thing about understanding this now is that you don't need a bigger salary to start. You need a bigger gap. Even a small gap, protected, automated, and left alone to compound, turns into something that eventually makes the salary conversation feel like the least interesting thing in the room. You are never losing because you didn't earn enough. You are losing because nobody handed you the right scoreboard. Now you have it.